Welcome to Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris with another edition of Success Talk, where we talk with people who have accomplished great things, but who have faced many challenges, who've overcome those challenges and made their breakthroughs. Today we have a financial planner, a friend, and a person who I think is helping people pay attention to their money. Garry Spriggs out of Atlanta. Garry, welcome to Success Talk.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? Pleasure speaking with you again. Thank you and also thank you for having me. Thank you for considering me for your program. I'm very honored that you reached out to me and asked me to be on. Thank you.
Well, Garry, the area this idea of financial planning is something that's so critical, especially to many of our people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And so when you look at it and think about it, it's such a critical issue. We did our talks before and whatnot, that what you're doing is so important for folks and to help them make that breakthrough.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Garry, tell a little about your background. How did you get started and make your transition to where you are right now?
All right, well, a little bit about me. I'm originally from the Virginia Beach area. Grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Navy. Both my parents were Air Force brats. My mom was a social worker. So I grew up with a sense of service and a great sense of service. So always just being able to help people and add value to them. My educational background, surprisingly, is in psychology. That was something that was a great interest to me in high school, going into college, and I got my degree in psychology. From college, I went into sales. I always had a knack for being able to connect with people and to serve people, but I always wanted to get into financial services. And I finally did a few years back, about 3-4 years ago, I got into financial services.
Well, when you move into a sales area, many times you're coming from, like they say, a real job. Okay. And so how did you make that transition from, what was your real job? And then how did you make that transition into sales?
Coming out of college, I worked for a nonprofit, which, it gave me great fulfillment. Just being able to help people and serve the community. However, it wasn't paying the bills. And the student loans were pretty hefty, and I knew didn't want to quite go down the line of psychology at the time. So my friend has suggested, why don't you try sales? My job is hiring. And at first I was reluctant. However, I took the job and I had great success for it. I mean, like immediately I was getting results and went to the top of the leaderboards at every company or at any product that I sold. And that's how I got into sales. And so looking back, I see that being able to understand how people think helped me connect with them and be able to fulfill their need, because that's all selling is just having a need, fulfilling a need for people.
Yeah. Well, Garry, many times I've trained salespeople myself, white and black, and I find that it's not like a lot of kids coming out of college who look at sales, many of them are reluctant to go into sales. Many black folks are reluctant to go into sales, and I find that many of the white folks are, happy to get into sales.
Yeah.
Is there any reason you think for that maybe young black men or young black women are reluctant to go into sales?
I would say confidence. Great thing of confidence, because I can go back to my younger self, and I remember there were times when clients that were Caucasian or other races, I used to, didn't have that confidence starting out. Like, hey, will they buy from me because I'm black, or will they really take me serious or think that I know what I'm talking about? So I would say it's just probably just a lack of confidence and limiting beliefs to think that they aren't as qualified as their Caucasian or Asian or Hispanic counterparts. So.
And also probably that fear of rejection.
Exactly. All that as well. Now that is, in the eat the frog, as they say, you have to, you have to get 100 no's to get to that one, but that one could, change your whole sales week or your whole life. So.
Yeah. That's and when I've been training people, that sense of rejection, man, they can't take that. And so I can see that being an impediment. Well, as you were making this transition, what was your biggest obstacle? Because going from, like I say, a real job to a profession, and sales is a profession, but
Mhm.
a profession where you have to earn your keep. Let's put it like that. Yeah.
Like you just mentioned, I think it was the rejection. It's being told no, or call me back, or making appointments and people not showing or keeping their appointments. You have to go through a lot of that, and that's
Mhm.
part of that's part of the job of being able to handle that rejection and overcome the obstacles. So I think those were the two things that I had to overcome, to be successful.
Mhm. Now, a lot of times you come into the sales area, even some of your own beliefs you have to deal with too.
Hmm.
That mindset. Now, how did you handle your mindset? Did you have to change your mindset, or could you take what you were doing into the sales arena and make it work?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind, a phrase that we used to always say, or I learned was, selling out of your own pocket. Because if you have a high ticket item, it's easy to look at the high ticket item and say, hey, I don't have the money for that, or I can't afford that, nor would I buy that. So I don't think anybody else would, where that's not
Mm,
the case. Just
yeah,
because you're looking at it and you're wherever you are financially doesn't mean that every client or potential client that you talk to is in the same financial state, and
yeah,
it goes back to value, because I didn't see the value in it doesn't mean that other people won't have the value in it. And I think that's something that hurts a lot of people in the sales arena, that they don't believe in the product because they don't see the value in it, nor can they afford
wow. Now you just hit a big nail there because,
it.
yeah, I like the way sell from your own pocket, because if you don't believe it, people can feel that. I think
Yeah,
when you talk to
definitely,
them,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I see your library and I love books. you
Yes,
know,
me
I
too.
was yeah, man, super impressed with your books. When you were making that transition into your financial services business, did you have a study routine or a learning curve that helped you get there?
Yes, like I said, when I was going to take the leap, I realized that I had limiting beliefs, I had self doubt, I had a lot of fear, and practically, I just didn't have the skill set. So I started reading to work on my mindset, work on my belief system, work on my selling skills and presentations, and also work on the knowledge, because there was a practical component of being able to get into financial service that I just didn't have because of my background. So that's how I got inundated into reading and books and being able to acquire that knowledge. And like I said, surprisingly, the product knowledge was the easiest thing to obtain, because read a couple books on financial services and you can get that. But it was retraining my mind, and my limiting beliefs was what was the really heavy lifting. It took a lot to reprogram myself.
Mm. I think you just hit another nail because so many people are imprisoned by their own minds.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're so convinced of what they can't do that they may not focus on what they can do. Yeah,
Exactly. And that and
yeah.
that was, that's why, I dove head deep into books. This, this changing, in which each book I got stronger and stronger, and it's compounded.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I thank you so much. You had some great words about the 12 Universal Laws of Success. When did you first encounter that book?
It was back in 2001, and it was when I was making the transition
Uh-huh,
into financial services. And I remember I was probably less than a year, and I was experiencing those growing pains where I
uh-huh.
was, it felt uncomfortable. I was starting to doubt myself, and asking myself, did I make the right decision? And a friend of mine had posted it on his Instagram, and I just randomly went to the library, checked it out, and I read it, and it was exactly what I needed. And I specifically remember reading the first three chapters over and over, because the first three chapters is about your mindset, changing yourself and your thoughts process and vision. And that's exactly where I was at. Like, look, I have to keep the vision. I have to change how I'm, thinking, what I'm saying to myself, and I'm capable of, creating the change that I want. So your first three chapters, I must have read them at least 3 or 4 times before I progress further into the book. So, thank you for, gifting myself and the world with that book.
Thank you, my friend. Well, at that chapter on vision, I think is so key, because if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, in your area, in that financial services area, many people don't know that they need a plan.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know they need it till they need it and they realize that they don't have it. And I think that this goes back to the vision, going back, piggybacking off what we just said about the vision. It's like, look, they don't think about it, or they don't have a clear picture of what it is that they want. They won't see the value in creating a plan. They won't see the value to taking the steps to, be disciplined with their finances.
Yeah. And that operative word is plan. I tell you,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, uh, one of my sons, I said to him once, I said, I said, you need to start saving some money.
Mhm.
He said, Dad, I don't make enough money to save.
Yeah.
And I said, if you're not making the money, you really got to save. Yeah. So when you encounter customers, is there a large education process? Like people say, well, I know I want to be secure financially, but as a part of your selling, really educating them on that whole process. And
I would say probably 80% of my presentation or job is just educating people, just showing them ways, explaining the product, explaining the process, and just explaining that they are capable. You just said something that your son said, "Hey, I don't make enough to save," and that's unfortunately the mindset of a lot of people. They don't think they make enough to save. They don't think they make enough to invest or create a plan. And I always tell people, like you told your son, of like, yo, that's why you need to make a plan. That's why you need to save. That's why you need to invest, so you can, stretch your money, make your money work for you, so you don't have to continue to work. But, being able to break that down and, educate people, show people, and then this, make it very practical of like, look, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and these are the steps that we need to take to get there.
wow, yeah. Well, that education process is so critical. When you're in a business for yourself, really, like I said, where you eat what you catch,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that distractions can really interfere with your flow. How do you handle distractions?
Yeah, the distractions, and I think that the biggest distractions come from in here. What you
Mm,
tell yourself, how you view things, how you react to things instead of responding to them. And what I had to do was I had to reprogram myself. I had to, learn how to overcome fear, how to overcome negative self-talk and limiting beliefs and doubt and things of that nature. So I think that's the biggest obstacle that I ran into, and that I
mhm,
had to, as I said, just I had to reprogram and restructure my whole thought process to be able to combat that.
mhm,
Because with any job or any aspect or time in life, you're gonna run up against I can't do that, or they don't like
mm,
me, or they won't buy from me, or I'm not capable, or I can't do this because X, Y, and Z. You're always gonna run into that.
mhm. Wow. Well, when you look back, I was just thinking, when you look back on, coming out of college and you look at where you are now, what advice would you give your younger self?
Wow. I would tell myself that you're capable of having everything you dream of and that you want. However, it's not going to be easy. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's, going back to my younger self. I always used to have dreams and, visions, but I would start to do them. Then I would hit a road bump and then I would stop because I wanted it to be easy. I wanted it to
Mm,
be, go smoothly. But that's, if it was that easy, everybody would have it.
yeah.
So it's supposed to be tough, but you're capable of doing it.
Mm. That's a beautiful thing, that The road is rough. It may be tough, but you can get past it.
Exactly.
That's a great thought. So now let's go on the other side of the spectrum. If you look at 20, 25 years from now, you know, where do you see yourself? And let's even, if you look down 25 years from now, what advice would you give your present self?
uh, I think I would give myself gratitude.
Ooh,
I would give myself thanks and gratitude and honor of for doing the hard work, for putting in that sweat equity, for putting in and instilling those habits, for reading all those books, for taking all those courses and watching all those videos and the sacrifices that I made or making. I
yes.
think that's what I would do. I think gratitude is the word that comes to mind.
Wow. I tell you, Gary, that's powerful.
Thank
That's
you.
powerful. Well, Oprah said, be grateful for what you have, and then you'll always get more.
Yeah, exactly. And it took
Yeah.
me a while I used to hear that growing up, but it took me 30 something years to be able to really grasp that. So I
Mhm.
wholeheartedly agree with that.
Wow. Well, when you think about it, you overcome distractions, you overcome self-doubt. Is there any other obstacle, in your area now that can kind of slow you down or impede your process?
Yes, and it's something that I deal with often, and for me, it's patience. It's
Mm,
patience. You have to be patient because we want what we want when we want it, and that doesn't always happen. And one thing that helps me with that, I actually was just reading about it this week, a lot about it this week, is like you don't have control of things. We think we can control the world and the world can yield to our control. However, we don't have control, and
mm,
because of that we have to be patient. So yes, things aren't going to happen when you want them to. Things aren't going to happen the way you want them to, but if you keep persisting, if you keep staying diligent, you'll be able to have or accomplish or execute, achieve your goals. I would
mm.
say patience is the thing that, I often have a tug of war with. Like, I want it now because I want it. And
Yes.
instead of, hey, it's coming, just keep going, keep
Yeah.
working, keep being patient.
That's a nice thought because the Bible says to everything is a season.
Exactly. Yep.
I love to look at the farmer who wants to feed his family and he has corn and he plants that corn. And no matter how hungry he is or his family is, you cannot eat corn in 2 weeks.
Yep,
Yeah,
yeah. Everything
yeah,
has, and that's funny. I just had that analogy that everything is seasonal. You have
uh-huh,
to plant it, you have to harvest, you have to wait, you have to care for it, then you can harvest. You don't plant it and, like you said,
yeah,
get it the next day or in 2 weeks. It has to go through the natural process of seasons.
yeah. It's cycle, yeah, and that's really, I think, with investment. I think a part of what people have to see is that it's a longer term process. You don't get
Yeah.
rich overnight. But when you lay out a plan, I guess you project ahead over a certain number of years and say, this is where you can be.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, and surprisingly, you know, I thought always going into it that it was going to be benefiting others, and
Uh-huh.
yes, monetarily it'll be benefiting me. But what I've learned recently, within the last year, that by me helping other people, I'm also helping myself. Like I said, as I
Mm,
go back to that patience part, and you
yeah,
just spoke on it, and just encapsulated it. Like, yeah, I have to tell people to be patient, and why I'm telling people that my internally, I'm like, you know what, Gary, remember this conversation because when you get impatient, it applies to you as well. It's just not for them, it's for me just as much.
yeah. And impatience will bring about mistakes.
Yeah, hasty decisions and
Yeah,
like I
hasty
said, you like
decisions.
my favorite thing is you react instead of respond. You
Wow.
react on the
Yeah.
let me instead of like, okay, what's the best course of action?
Yes. Yes. Well, Gary, I tell you, we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time, really. And I thank you for your time and your efforts. Any closing thoughts you'd love to share with the world?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you. And I'm, like I said, once again, I'm honored that you know, reached out to me and you consider me for your program. So I want to thank you as well. And the thing that I would say is closing thoughts, you know, going back to what I would tell myself, I would tell anybody who's watching, who has a dream or a vision, or there's something that you wish you would have done or wish you would start, that you can have it. You're capable of having everything that you want, and that you dream of, and that you see and hear and in here. You're capable of having that. And just do the work, be patient with yourself, be graceful with yourself. If you haven't accomplished it, or if you have made mistakes, it's okay. That's part of failure, is part of the journey. And you know, last and not least, as simple as it sounds, as cliche, it's not about the end goal. It's not about achieving something. It's about really who you become in the process.
Ooh, wow. Well, Garry, I tell you, man, I thank you so much. That's so profound. It's about who you become in the process, because
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you accomplish, if you don't become that good person that you are, you don't become that person who's fulfilling your purpose, it
Yeah,
it, it could
amen.
be in
Amen.
vain. Yeah, yeah. Well, brother, is there any contact information you'd like to give, a website?
Yeah, I love people to, you know, for me, I do a lot of I post what I'm reading a lot on my Instagram, and I have a podcast at Black Man with Books on Instagram, as well as on any podcast platform. That's my primary go-to. I like to give people that so they could, you know, it's all about getting this right, then everything else will follow.
Okay. So Black Man with Books on Instagram. Okay. Well, brother, I sure appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
Dr. S.
And we're going to do another interview because we covered a lot of good stuff in our
I
conversation.
look forward to it. I look
Yeah.
forward to it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And remember this, for our listeners, today has been a special event. We had things happen today that have never happened before. But I think Garry and I both learned the lesson, like, keep moving. No matter what happens, keep
Man.
moving. The show must go on. So for our listeners, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing. This is a program that you will probably want to listen to it 2 or 3 times, because there's some nuggets in there that can help you plan your life, plan your finances, and can help you understand why you have to do it. So this is Dr. Herbert Harris saying thank you, Garry, for being on our program. And to our listeners, you can be what you want to be. You can do what you want to do. You can have anything you desire, knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.